Well, Mark, the preparation for this one, given that Rotherham have a really strong identity and the fact you only played them last month, presumably it's been a little more straightforward than normal?
Yeah, it's quite a strange one actually, playing so soon after having played each other and before the halfway point as well in the season. So fixtures fall at a funny time. I think obviously because there's more weeks in the front half of this end of the year than there is in the 2022 is probably why, and to try and regionalise a little bit more the Boxing Day fixtures. It kind of makes sense, but it's just unusual. So yeah, played them not so long ago. We know the strengths of the team and the form that they're in, and one, because we've got a good knowledge of the league, but two, because of how recently we played them. It was a good game that day. I thought we gave a really good account of ourselves, but came up against a really powerful and aggressive team in a brilliant moment of form, and really hit the ground running this season. I think unbeaten in 20 at the moment. So we know it's a tough game, but we know we can compete with these teams, and we'll have to give the best version of ourselves to be there on the weekend. But I think it's one to look forward to, because last time it was one that we learned from, certainly, and one that I think we looked at and thought, God, if we could be like any team in the league we played this year, that they're a version of what we'd love to try and become somewhere down the line.
Was it a good example of, you can sit in the meeting room, you can look at the footage, you can completely understand what a side is all about, but for the players, when you actually go out and play against them, it does make a difference, and hopefully it can be a positive difference for this weekend?
I hope so, yeah. I think because you know the intensity of the game, you know how hard they run, how much you're going to get pressed, how much they're going to make you defend your box, how well and early and with quality they get the ball forward, and the strength of the front two and the midfield runners. I think we know in the first hand what that looks like and feels like, and we'll need to be ready for it from the very first whistle on the weekend. I think that's obvious off the back of the last game, but it's certainly something we can't let us surprise us in the early part. But one of the things we did really well in that game is took the ball and linked the game really well. We had a good counter-attacking threat, but we had some brilliant situations with the ball and chances ourselves, and we might have been able to get level at a stage in the game as well. We had some excellent football that we played and some excellent attacking intent throughout the game. So we'll have to find the best version of ourselves in every area of the game. We know that, but that's the challenge for us this weekend.
Yeah, and when it comes to their form, you talk about them being in a great moment last time around. They've now got the best defensive record and the best attack in the league, so they just continued to build since you played them.
Yeah, and no surprise. I think the top teams are the top teams for a reason. That level of consistency that they can find is really, really top level. And they've had a tough year last year in the sense that they fell out of the championship, but they've kept that squad together. And I think the physicality and the lessons that they'd learned and the ambition to get back there is really driving them this year. And they're a good team for us to learn from in the longer term, I guess, and in the big picture. But in the short term, we've got to go and be competitive and try and score points off them this weekend.
Let's talk about the team news. So Wes missing last weekend. You will hopefully be back in training. Has that gone to plan?
Well, he was out with Mikey jogging on Tuesday, so we'll see how he fares over the next couple of days. See, last time we played Rotherham, his performance was outstanding. Applauded off the pitch. I thought he was brilliant that day. So obviously, we'd like to have him available, but we have to see how he fares over the next couple of days.
With Shiloh Traore, I think your phrase was he maybe needed a miracle ahead of being properly assessed last week. Is that now confirmed that he's going to have a lengthy spell out?
Well, we don't know how long at the moment, but he's not on the grass at the minute. So we're just waiting for some follow-up appointments with him. So it was a nasty tackle on him, and his ankle went underneath him. So we just got to see how that plays out over the next few days. But we don't really have a timescale on that at the moment, and don't really want to commit to saying how long that might be at the minute.
How do you see the battle, and I think we can phrase it this way, between Jibril and Connor for the place alongside Jack Iredale in central defence, in that Jibril's now had a little run in the side, but last time against Rotherham, Connor came in because of his physicality and his size and all the rest of it. How do you see that battle progressing?
I think it's good. I think it's good for younger players to dip in and out the team sometimes. I think you have to evolve towards being able to hit that level consistently. Over the last few games, I think Jibril's done excellently. He played really well last week against the top front two. And they've got probably complementary skill sets. They're quite different to each other in many ways. They've obviously got some similarities because the position demands that, but there's a slight difference between the two of them physically, an alternative each time that we play. And both of them over the course of the season have had some real highlights and some top games and some games that they found difficult. But I think that's probably reflective of lots of us really in the main so far as we adjust to this level, but those players adjust to playing consecutive games and continuous games where it's high pressure and good opposition. I think it's a nice challenge to have, and it's a good option for us to have where we can pick between those two and to complement Jack at the moment, who has found himself playing there regularly and done a great job himself.
With Jibril, do you think long term, is he a centre back? Is he a right back? Is it important to keep an open mind at this stage? How do you see that?
I think it's important to be able to play both. I think George has cemented his place really as our right back and having a really good season. So the options and the time for Jibs to play at right back has been really limited. He did it at Morecambe away for 90 minutes. He did it at Oxford last year in his first game for us. Other than that, we've not really seen him there so much. So we've got a better opinion of him and we've got more evidence of him playing centre back than at right back. But I wouldn't want that to sway us at the minute because we really haven't got that balanced view on those two things. But I think he's got the qualities to play in both positions. He's got nice athleticism and potential to keep developing. And I also think that I think nowadays you do see people that can play in a few positions. I think that's quite good to have that flexibility. You tend to see it maybe a bit more at the top end of the pitch. But when you have slightly smaller squads, sometimes I think that is a strength to have players that can cover a couple of positions. So we're not really looking too much long term with him. It's more about continuing what he's doing at the moment, and that will contribute to where he ends up. But being able to play both is a key thing for him.
Now, it's great that we've got to this stage of the season, and I think this is probably the first time that we'll have really asked you about COVID, but clearly with the way things have developed over the past couple of weeks, we don't know too much about whether the new variant's going to make you significantly iller, but it does seem to be more infectious. We've seen it with some of the games at Premier League level. Have you taken extra measures around the training ground? Have you changed anything as yet, or had you been quite cautious right the way through the season? How's that shaping up?
Well, I think when you look at football in general at the moment, you're starting to see quite a few games called off at the up top levels. And the protocols are beginning to change. I think it's a matter of days before the EFL make a little bit more of a change around protocols at the training ground. We've stepped those up ourselves, limiting the amount of indoor space, limiting the use of spending too much time together in close contact, because I think that's important. One, to try and allow people a Christmas in and around the next few weeks. Also, we've got limited numbers at the minute, so we need to make sure we try and keep everybody available where we can. And so I think that's just fairly sensible, and I think that's becoming widespread now across clubs a little bit more, just to almost revert to a bit more of what we had in place last year, because it's good to be cautious, but I think probably it's sensible at the moment when you hear everything that's going on. We wait to be guided a little bit, but at the same time we've become fairly experienced in this now from the last 18 months. And to take the necessary precautions, I think, is quite sensible. So we'll continue to do that, and we'll just see how the next few weeks plays out while we rush through that booster program as best we can, and see how things play out in the next few weeks. But I think guided by our safety advisory group, the EFL, the government, all those things will be really important for us. But we've got good people here and good staff, knowledgeable people in this area now, and we just have to try and limit the issues that we can face.
Much like this time last year, the Premier League financially have less of an issue with paying for the testing. Is it a case at EFL level that you're just waiting for some financing to get in place, and then probably more regular testing will come back in?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it will. But a lot of the testing's been lateral flow. So nhs.org, if you can get some, that's where we've been trying to get our bits from, or popping into Boots. So everybody's making sure they're well stocked and stacked up, but it's just accessing those a little bit. But I'm sure at some point, if it becomes a necessity, I mean, in the end, we were paying for our own ones anyway. So I don't see that as a major issue. And I think lateral flow test is the sensible one in the first instance, and then obviously the PCRs after that. But at the minute, we're okay. We're just stocking up like everybody else, really.
Cool, that's great.
Well, just quickly following up on that, I was just going to ask really quickly on that. Obviously, a lot of the managers at the top level are saying that there should be a set of guidelines across the board so that everybody knows within clubs what the rules are if teams were able to call a game off? Is that something you believe should be in place?
I don't know. I think there was a little bit of confusion last year, and clearly there seems to be a little bit now around what is the line and what allows some teams to get called off other than others. And I don't know is the answer. I think when we go through this, it's so difficult for anybody to know and who counts as a qualifying player, because, you know, a bit like international duty, sometimes games get called off because some players are on duty that will never contribute to the team. So I don't quite know how you manage that situation. I guess you just take a bit of responsibility to try and get yourself a team out as much as you can. And you certainly, I think the EFL, the Premier League, put under massive strain by trying to fit this season in off the back of last season ahead of what's coming next season. So I think it's a major challenge, and people don't want to be calling games off for lots of reasons. So I think they'll avoid that at all costs. But yeah, whether there needs to be a certain number to get a game called off, I guess there's people with better opinions than me. We just crack on until we're told not to.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Mark.
Mark, you mentioned recently that you've been pleased with most of the performances, especially I believe you said that you had one of your best performances of the season despite the results against Charlton. What do you think the team has done well recently where they've been able to have such good performances?
Well, pretty much everything, if I'm honest, John. I think we're defending really well. I think we're being more aggressive and pressing quite well. I think we've been a threat on counter-attack, which has been a case for us a lot of the season. We're starting to carry more of a threat in possession and sustain the ball for longer periods and sustain attacks for longer periods. And we're finding multiple ways of creating chances. So I think across the board, we've been playing better. We've been doing that against top teams, which is a barometer of progress. And we've been doing it in massive atmospheres and big crowds, which is another sign of progress. I think we know over the next couple of weeks and the next month or so that we'll be challenged in lots of ways. But if we keep sticking to that process and keep improving, we know that results will turn. So we're fairly calm on that. And I think there's so many areas collectively, but also individually, where we're starting to find a better level. And the key for us is just that consistency. If we can do that regularly, we know we'll be on the right side of more results than we aren't.
Do you feel like that with all of the matches you played recently against top teams, Wigan, Sunderland, Rotherham the first time, Charlton, do you feel like that all of that experience will help you when you play now Rotherham a second time, especially now you'll also be able to play them at home?
Well, it should do in theory, yeah. You'd like to hope so, but I'm sure that from their side, they'll see the momentum that they've got. Players that were unavailable against us last time, Rathbone in midfield, Michael Smith as a striker, they become available for them this time around. So in effect, they get stronger as well. So they'll have their own version of what they want this game to look like. But from our point of view, you have to be too careful overanalyzing one game, because there can be so many variables. I think across the whole areas of our game that we look at and we work on and we are analysing, I think we're making good progress. And we certainly want to use the experiences that we've had to help us continue getting better. Whether that results always in a positive result in the next game is obviously up to so many variables, but we know that we're making progress, and we come out of a really difficult period and continue in that period of challenging games with our confidence high because of the level that we've been hitting in games.
You mentioned that Rotherham have the best attack in the league. They have the best defense in the league. What are the biggest challenges that a team who's so well balanced like that, who's playing at such a high level, present to you?
There's lots. Obviously, I think when you play all these teams, I think in the main, you're just going to have to be at the best level of your game. Try and limit the number of mistakes that you make, the number of fouls that you give away, and give them opportunities to serve the box. And then you need to play with real high quality and a real clinical nature in your attacking play. That will be our challenges this weekend.
Cheers, Mark. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, can I just check? Liam and Greg, how are they coming on injury-wise?
Yeah, quite well. Greg's been doing all sorts of different things at the moment, but his follow-ups with the surgeons have been really positive. So he's going well. He's on track for where we feel he would be, or maybe slightly ahead. And Liam's out working really hard on the grass with Matt and Mikey, working on his fitness things now. So hopefully it won't be too long before he's back in football sessions. With any luck, before the turn of the new year, he can be contributing and getting into the training sessions with the lads, which will help him in that next stage of his recovery.